Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Dallas Virtual SAC of 2020. Okay, Nicole, you've got it.
Thanks so much, Dave. Hi, everybody. Welcome again. Thanks so much for making the time to come today. By way of introduction, I'm Nicole Eunice. I'm a former Army officer and a manager at Deloitte Consulting. I was a veteran here, veteran hire here rather, and I've had the pleasure to work with all three of the organizations on the line today at one point or another. So looking forward to a great discussion. In order to kick things off, I'm going to ask our panelists just a few questions, which will really serve as an intro for them as well. So for our first question, how did you all become involved with the military and veteran hiring initiatives at your organization? And were you surprised that you got involved? We're going to start off with John. John?
Great, thanks. Well, it actually was a surprise. So I joined Johnson & Johnson through one of our MBA leadership development programs. So I was both an intern and then subsequently joined as a full-time hire. And I think it speaks to the importance of employee resource groups. So the first person I met on day one, so sort of post interviews, I actually joined and started at the company for my internship, was the person who led our veterans employee resource group for the entire company at the enterprise level. And he just made a point to come and visit me, reach out, stop by my desk a couple minutes after I walked in and said like, hey, I know this is your first job coming from active duty in the military and now in your MBA program. He did something very, very similar and just really went out of his way, within the first few minutes of me even walking in the building on my first day to connect me. And that turned into, hey, would you like to volunteer? Hey, a group of us are going to go and hold this event. Would you like to get more involved? So I was lucky in that, hey, that person also worked in the same building I was interning at, but I think it speaks to the value of employee resource groups to make somebody feel like they belong. And I'll remember that for the rest of my life of, hey, my first day on the job, besides, of course, your manager always welcomes you, but I had someone else who I wasn't working with at all over that summer who went out of his way to stop by and say, hey, welcome. Hey, I have some similar experiences and, please consider me a resource. So that's my story.
Yeah, that's awesome, John. I think that's one of the staples of kind of strong veteran recruiting programs, right? Like you hit the ground running, expecting to never hear from these people again. And all of a sudden they're like your best buddies in the organization. So that's great. How about you, Wayne?
So I'd say my experience was very similar to John's. By the way, I'm a Air Force retiree. I was a Chief Master Sergeant when I retired. And so, for me, I was hired to Workday through a veterans program also. This program assigned you a mentor directly, and my mentor just happened to be our office's lead to our veteran, we call them belonging committees, but same thing as a resource group. And, as he mentored me through this 4-month program, basically said, hey, at the end of this, I've been our lead here in the Salt Lake office for a long time. How would you feel about taking over as our lead of the employee resource group here? And for me, having been involved with taking care of airmen for years, it just felt like a natural transition. It also was a great opportunity for me to continue to grow my network within the company itself. To not only work with other veterans right there at our local office, but to expand that throughout the whole organization here at Workday. And then also a great thing about our employee resource group is we have a lot of allies that are part of our group that aren't necessarily veterans themselves. Some are family members of veterans, others are just individuals that really have a passion about supporting veterans and appreciate our service. And so those individuals, are very key, a lot of those within the organization. In fact, all of our groups require that we have an executive level sponsor. And so, it gave me an opportunity to be involved with individuals like-minded, that had served. I spent a lot of time in recruiting myself, so it was also a natural fit to be asked to continue to perpetuate these different opportunities at Workday within the veteran communities, something that I'm very well connected with. Already my last position, I worked directly with the state on a lot of veteran initiatives. So it just kind of fell right in with what I was already doing in my career as I retired out. So, it was one thing that really endeared me to Workday itself was the real passion towards taking care of veterans and providing me an opportunity to not only help the company, in their initiatives as a company, but also reach back to the veteran community and be able to support. So.
That's great, Wayne. Another staple of a great veteran program, right? If you're there a few months and you're not in charge of something yet, you must have fallen through the cracks. Vince, I know your story will be a little bit different, but you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so Deloitte has an incredible number of veteran programs, and when I joined very quickly, I became what we call the talent group leader. So I'm responsible for everything what I like to say inside of the house when it comes to things like hiring, recruiting, staffing, performance management, and the person who now leads even a much larger organization was my counterpart running the organization, and he said, one of the vet organizations is trying to bring in vet hiring into the Workday practice. And it's funny because the question was here, were you surprised? No, I was excited as all get out. I know I was just celebrating the fact that we were moving forward. And funny enough, to the people who were on this call, were in that first class, and from that it's grown. Every year we've had classes since they joined, as well as it's been so fun as it's been for me, a vehicle to get involved in so many of these different organizations within Deloitte. The ESG Freedom Award submission team, the list is endless. I can't even tell you how many different organizations I've been able to participate in as a result of this. So was I surprised? No. And it just has truly, I think, in a lot of ways, kind of changed who we are, which we'll talk about. And I think some of the upcoming questions that I'm going to get as we move forward.
Great. Thanks so much, Vince. All right, guys. So just moving on to our next question. What is your organization's overall philosophy around military and veteran hiring? And also, how has that program sort of evolved the landscapes of your teams? John, we'll start with you again.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it starts with one, veterans bring diverse functional and industry experience. I think we don't often start with that, right? But for most folks, potentially they may be going and saying, in the defense industry, but if you're joining J&J, more than likely you're switching your industry and now you're switching the functional area. Sometimes there's always exceptions to that, but that diversity of thought, experience, certainly lends itself to helping our teams grow and helping drive innovation and bringing in new thoughts and ideas. The second thing is veterans do come in with our perspective is, veterans come in with stronger skills and traits than do the general population as a result of that military service. So we know that when we're hiring veterans, we're getting folks who are more than likely to be higher performing and be retained longer, provided we do certain things to help drive that and enable it. So you're getting diverse backgrounds, in particular function and industry background, but also all the other ways that we think about diversity. And then second, you're getting people who are more than likely to be higher performers because they come in with certain skills and traits, and we can enable them to be retained longer. So that's a great value proposition. And when you start with thinking of it that way, you really want to do a lot to focus on that demographic. So how does that then impact our actual teams and the performance of the organization? One, it's great to be at an organization that's led by a West Point graduate. So our chairman is Alex Gorski, who's a West Point alumnus. We have many other leaders at very senior positions who are also alumni. But I'm more excited, frankly, about some of the that broad middle and what individuals are able to bring, and in particular around leadership training to the rest of the organization that can enhance and augment some of the the standard trainings all large companies have. So one example would be we have a program called Operation Leadership. Again, this is led from our employee resource group community that's helping to bring some of the methodology and trainings that we use within the military to teach leadership to all of our service members, bring that to the corporate world, right? So leverage the things that we had in the military to go and make our teams stronger in the private sector. So I think it's great to have the CEO and the chairman be a military veteran, and that comes with some great leadership, but also great that the broad middle of the organization is able to drive it from our veteran community.
Yeah, that's great. So wonderful to hear about an organization that has been able to really have that large span of vets throughout. I think that makes really such a difference. Wayne, how about Workday?
Yeah, I'd say it's very similar to what John just stated, that I think, you know, and I've been with Workday now for about 2 years, and I've been thoroughly impressed with, um, I would say, hiring practices as a whole. Workday has a large focus on providing opportunity, especially to individuals or groups that either have barriers to employment or come from diverse backgrounds, maybe non-traditional hiring pools, that especially from a tech company view, there's a lot of value in the diversity that you find from targeting these um, you know, groups that are non-traditional to a tech company. And so, you know, veteran specific, I look at a lot of our teams over the last few years and how through our career accelerator program, which I'll probably get a chance to talk a little bit more about later, but I see managers in our Salt Lake office. It was new when I first joined. It's the program I joined through, and a little apprehensive from our manager group to try out this new program. And now I see among the managers, there's a fight to get these slots to bring veterans on their team, because they see the success that these individuals have had within the office, and not only their individual success, but what they bring to the team when it comes to, you know, the typical things that you expect to see from a veteran. You know, that they have the leadership experience, they come from a diverse learning background, they've been through a career where continual improvement and you know, introspective looks at yourself to through that improvement is a big thing. They're also, you know, veterans, as we know, we're all very conscious about it. Integrity, respecting procedures, but also being able to step up and be the lead if necessary, but also step back and be a great first team member if necessary. And we can transition back and forth between those roles very well. And Workday's seen that value. And you know, right now, our employee resource group, we have a big initiative going on with our executive leadership in how do we better focus on recruiting veterans through our traditional recruiting force, but then also, like John was saying, how do we take this military experience and training and spread it across the organization as a whole to be able to, you know, help improve us as an organization. So.
Sure. Great to hear that you're starting to have managers fight over those slots. I know as veteran programs mature, at first people can kind of tend to be like, oh, I've never hired one of these people before. They look different than the people I've hired in the past, and hiring managers can be a little bit reluctant. So great to hear that your program's at the point now where the managers are fighting for vet candidates. That's fantastic. Vince?
Yeah, so, you know, it's interesting. Workday's in an organization called HR Transformation, and there's like other HR platforms, SAP, Oracle, HR strategy services. There's a whole bunch around there, and it's funny because, well, Workday was the first, and you know, as Wayne can attest, the the market for Workday people is insane in terms of how, you know, how voracious an appetite all organizations, clients, Workday themselves, service providers are in terms of needing people. So, you know, as I talked about, we brought, you know, we had our first class in. Nicole was a member of our first class. The funny thing is how it's really evolved is, you know, not only is like I loved hearing Wayne talk about now they're getting leadership positions. You know, one of the Ben Derry and another one in the first group is on the call. You know, he loves to say we don't sit back, veterans lead, and I think Cole's doing that here right now. And not only did we do that, but it's this group that has taken the Workday, you know, solution to bringing in resources and actually applied it throughout all of HRT. And now all of the HRT organizations are looking at, they've seen the success of the organization, are bringing in more. So, you know, it's just been a opportunity that is built upon itself so incredibly well that, you know, I mean, you know, funny thing is it isn't just that the veterans are, you know, just another member. Just they're our strongest members is what they're evolving to, and that to me is what's so exciting about the program.
Thanks, Vince. Wayne alluded to it a little bit in the beginning of his answer, but all three of your organizations are known for having really quite admirable core values and a commitment to corporate citizenship. So what are some of the ways that your hiring program of veterans sort of enforces or highlights some of those core values? John, you want to start off?
Sure. Yeah. So J&J's values are embodied in a document we call our credo. It's one of the really, I think, the very early corporate value statements. It's over 75 years old, and it was written actually by General Robert Wood Johnson. And it's now, you see many of the structure of our value statement is now embodied even by the Business Roundtable statement on the purpose of business that recently was re-released or refreshed. And it talks to company responsibilities in 4 broad groups. For us, it's patients and customers, it's employees, it's communities, and then it's to shareholders. And when I think of that paragraph of our credo that talks about employees, it talks about inclusivity, fair compensation, equal opportunity for advancement. How do we make that come alive for our military and veteran community? I think one great example of it for us is around how do we treat members of the Guard and Reserve, those current service member employees. So for us, we were really proud to have a leading military leave policy where individuals can have their full pay and benefits on top of their military pay and benefits when they're activated for any reason, whether it's their couple week annual training or the 1 month training exercise that they have in the U.S. or responding to a natural disaster or doing that year-long deployment somewhere. So I think that's one way that the values come to life for the community. There's other examples, but it's really thinking of it this broad lens of the values are what drive the company, and then you need to meet those unique needs and enable the unique strengths of the different communities. And we try to do that to include for the veterans, current service members, and military families.
Thanks so much for speaking to that, John. I was a reservist for a number of years, so I know the challenges and the anxieties that reservists can face, when they're trying to balance both careers. So that's great to hear about. Wayne, how about Workday?
Yeah, and I would say for me personally, as I came through the hiring process, as I looked at Workday as an option, that was one of the first things that endeared me to Workday was their core values. We have 6 of them. Employees is number 1. And I think that really is shown in our hiring practices. I know that the couple boards that I've been on here recently, the managers, this was a key thing for them is, does this individual fit the core values of Workday? It almost was equally as important to their experience and training or anything else that they had. It was, do they fit the core values of Workday? And so that it really did hit me in the beginning, and it's just carried through in my career here at Workday, how important these are. And it comes up in all of our meetings. We talk about, the 6 core values are employees, customer service, innovation, integrity, profitability, and then my favorite, fun. That was one thing that really, again, hit me with Workday, that not only is it about hiring the best people and taking care of them, making sure that our customers have the best experience that we can possibly give them, having the best products through innovation, making sure we're following all the rules and we have, pure integrity. We're, for our shareholders, we're as profitable as we can be, but ultimately we want to have fun in doing it, because if we have fun, we cover those other things too. And so, I think that bleeds not only into the hiring practices at Workday, but basically everything we do every day is this following our core values? Is this driving one of these intents and not forgetting one of the others? So, like I said, super impressed right from the beginning with the core values that Workday has.
Thanks, Wayne. Yeah, I think for some of us, at least making the initial transition, having a company with core values helps us sort of stay grounded, right? It's so ingrained in us in whichever service we came from. So a little bit of a North Star to keep us on track. Vince, how about Deloitte?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. I think our core values are shared amongst what you've heard the others. But one of the things I think is very specific to the Workday practice within Deloitte and HRT is one of the. So I was a co-founder of a company that was acquired by Deloitte, and one of the things that I think really what we tried to do was that was incredibly important to us is win. that we want to, chase perfection as best we possibly can. And one of the things that I think I've seen, one of the things I think that the veteran program does, I haven't really seen a specific cohort show up as much as this group has, is they share that. They will, whether it's in, taking care of things inside the house, recruiting, taking care of each other, making sure we are showing up as best we possibly can in a client pursuit, in a delivery. It is just relentlessly chasing perfection, and it's a core value. I think that it's dovetailed amazingly well with what we've tried to accomplish within our practice, and I think it's one of the reasons why. Well, I mean, Wayne may or may not agree, but I think Deloitte is the best within the ecosystem. And, we hopefully there's no one else from any other organization on. But no, honestly, I think it's really helped us exceed where I think others would like to. And I think the veteran program has been a key function of that.
Thanks so much, Vince. All right, everybody, we're gonna sort of drill a little deeper with each of our panelists in each of their organizations by asking some more specific questions to their groups. So we'll start with J&J. John, you talked about this a little bit in your initial intro in your first experience, day one at J&J, but in complement to the reputation for caring and innovation that J&J has, how do you all help military and veteran hires transition from their service careers to their very new civilian careers at J&J?
Yeah, so I think there's two things to highlight. So one, and I'll just build off my earlier comments around having a really strong employee resource community, an employee resource group that's specific to the military connected community for veterans, current service members, military families. If individuals are going out of their way to self-identify, and that's a really important part of their their sense of satisfaction, their sense of where they had, their professional experience with the skills that they're coming in with, having that outlet for them and that opportunity for engagement is an incredibly important one. So for us, we're really proud to have a best-in-class employee resource group that gives individuals opportunities to engage locally with business or functional units that are most closely aligned to wherever they're sitting within the organization, so they can build that broad network. Then the next thing is, it's opportunities for them to grow as individuals professionally, right? Whether it's through mentorship or it's through, other skill building activities within the organization. It's opportunities to engage in the community, and you feel a greater sense of belonging to J&J when you're at a joint event. We partner, as an example, we partner closely with American Corporate Partners, which is a one-on-one mentoring program. And we see individuals who volunteer as mentors through our employee resource group with ACP feel a greater sense of belonging to the broader organization, have greater satisfaction in their day role because they had that opportunity to give back to this community that they feel is so valuable to them. And then the last thing the employee resource group does, it can enhance them in their day role. And I think of the great work our procurement community does within J&J, and the veterans within the procurement community who are able to better engage veteran-owned business suppliers or military spouse-owned business suppliers because of they're part of this broader veteran community within J&J. They have a greater understanding of it, and they're able to then share that to their colleagues in procurement who are not veterans or military spouses or otherwise connected, and make them better. So I think the first thing is have a great community that lets people feel a sense of belonging, bring their full self to work. The second thing is, in particular for recently transitioned service members, doing some things to differentiate onboarding can also be really helpful to employment and subsequent retention. It's things like, hey, this might be your first, I'll use myself as an example. Hey, this is your first job in a civilian role. And, are we taking into account with both you and your manager, who's more than likely not a veteran or not in any way connected to the military, are they taking into account in your development planning the fact that you had 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 years of professional military experience, and saying, hey, we realize that you've had substantial leadership experience or project management experience. I need to maybe not start you at that initial level. I need to start you at the mid-level and really bring that in. So differentiating onboarding, and in particular, taking into consideration all of the skills and experience you have, another really, really important thing to ensure a successful transition. But it really goes back down to differentiating that experience for different individuals. A recently transitioned service member is a different type of veteran than is one who's 25 years ago was in the military and now has spent 25 years in pharmaceutical sales. Right? They both have unique needs, but they're going to be different. You really need to not do a one size fits all. And I think best in class organizations really do a good job at looking at those subgroups and focusing down on it.
Excellent. Thanks, John. The onboarding piece is a pretty good segue to the next question I have. And I think it's probably on the minds of a lot of our participants here today. But when you're recruiting service members, what are some of those traits or experiences that you find that are most transferable to success at J&J?
Yeah, Wayne hit so many great ones earlier, talking about some of the great skills and experiences that are brought in. I always go back to, I think learning agility is one I talk about most to both veterans and non-veterans, and being able to say, compared to other individuals, veterans are more likely to have had multiple roles at an earlier period of time, to have had multiple cross-functional experiences, to have had multiple cross-cultural experiences or sort of diverse things, have worked in different continents or different countries, different societies. So they've had that opportunity to go learn through practice all of these different skills and traits, and then they're able to then bring that to success in their next role. So the mindset should not be, well, this is, I'm quote unquote taking a risk on somebody who's a function or industry switcher, but rather I'm taking somebody who I know will learn this new area uniquely, quickly, and will then bring in all of the different things that they've learned through their past work, because that's sort of inherent to the way the military is structured talent development. When I deep dive in, like, okay, then what are the really tangible skills we talk about, right? It's things like the things that Wayne was talking about of, hey, they're coming in with resiliency to a greater degree than other segment of the population. They're coming in with project management experience. They're coming in with different communication skills. And then they're also, and really importantly, coming in with different leadership experiences. The military tends to give greater leadership opportunities and people management opportunities to individuals more junior in their career than does the civilian world. So we know that they're going to come in and understand how to teach, coach, mentor, supervise better than their counterparts in the civilian world at a more junior point in their career.
Excellent. Thank you so much, John. It's great to see sort of a deeper lens in on J&J. We're going to transition now over to Wayne. Wayne, you alluded to it a little bit before, but my understanding is that Workday has a program called CAP, Career Accelerator Program, and that's sort of the mechanism through which you train and certify military personnel in the Workday platform, and that gives sort of an ability to enrich in the transition process and give them some technical skills. Can you tell us a little bit more about this program?
Yeah, so the Career Accelerator program, Workday started that back in 2016, excuse me. And it's a great opportunity to bring a veteran in that, especially if their skill set is not traditional to the tech sector, like we've talked, and provide a 4-month opportunity, not only to train that individual in that particular, and kind of to step back, as we bring a veteran into these positions, it's not just, hey, we're sticking you in a general position. We're going to train you generally for 4 months, and then we're going to see what happens. It's very specific work between the individuals that run the program and the managers. The individuals our veterans are placed directly into a job that they will train specifically for that job, with the intent at the end of that 4-month period, if everything aligns and they meet certain levels of expectation, the plan there is to transition them to full-time in most cases. And right now I think we're at about a 70+% transition from this training program to full-time. And with that, as individuals come into the CAP program, and I'll just use myself as an example because I came through that program, I was assigned a veteran right off the bat as a mentor. And in fact, prior to me even interviewing the first time for this position, I had a veteran contact me from Workday and said, hey, I understand you've applied for this position. I'd like to take an opportunity to do just an informational interview with you. answer any questions you have, set you up for any kind of success that I can as you move into this interview process. So, Workday starts from even before the hiring in prepping you for this interview, but not only for that, if this program doesn't happen to work out for you, a lot of the things that veteran talked to me about prior to my interview would have carried on with any other interview I would have done with any other company. So, the value started even prior to the interview. But then once selected, you're linked up with a mentor within our veterans group to walk you through the program. Like I said, it's a 4-month paid experience. And for me, my veteran mentor was as crucial to my success as my leadership and my even my manager, as he saw different things within me that I could capitalize on, like John had talked about. Went to my manager and the director of our organization, said, hey, Wayne should go to this training. Wayne's got this skill set. This background equates directly to this that you have within your organization. And so he helped my leadership translate and understand my experience even better than I could, because he had the understanding of Workday on top of the understanding of my military experience. And so, that's a great thing with the program that the mentorship side does for our veterans that come in. And then, again, like John alluded to, the veterans employee belonging groups, we call them belonging councils or the resource groups, is key to our veteran success. Also, we make sure that everybody in our CAP program is introduced to our members of our both local to where they're at, but the group as a whole, to increase their network, to start to reach out to not only build that network within the veteran community, but within Workday as a larger group. And then the other piece that I think the CAP program provides that I thought was very crucial is they develop very pointed opportunities for other members within Workday to come in and do panel discussions with the CAP members, to work them through some very specific trainings for their positions. So it's not just, hey, we're going to give you to a manager and hope that everything works out for 4 months. It's a week by week, month by month planned out experience. Again, with the intent at the end of the experience to have prepared that veteran to be hired within Workday as a full-time employee. And if it doesn't work out, to provide that individual with a great training and experience that hopefully will carry them into their next opportunity.
Yeah, what an incredible program. A veteran colleague of mine, actually, we were cadets together back at MIT, went through the program a few years ago, and she's just had such incredible things to say about the support and the skills that she gained through it. So wonderful to hear that it's proliferating the way that it is. As a tech company, Workday might not seem like the most obvious career choice for someone leaving the military. So just interested to hear kind of a success story about one of your military hires.
Yeah, and so my first comment on that is, it's interesting as I talk to people and say, yeah, I was in the Air Force, their first question is, well, what plane did you fly? Right? And I'm like, well, I had this great cherry wood desk, but no matter how hard I stepped on the accelerator, I could never get it off the ground, And so I think it's the same thing with a large company like Workday, that even though it's tech-based, not everybody's a software design engineer or is directly involved in the application of the product. It's such a diverse opportunity within a company this large that, and I think I fell into that same, notion when I first looked at Workday. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to be that old guy in a young, fresh tech company. I've seen Robert De Niro in The Intern. I'm not going to be that guy. But as I did my research, I found out it's so much broader than that, and there's so many more opportunities within an organization that large that, that would be my first thing that I'd encourage folks in. And I do, as I talk to other individuals, is don't get caught up in that it's a tech company. There's so many opportunities. But even within that, there's a number of veterans that are here at Workday. I don't know the exact number. I know that within our employee resource group, we have we're pretty close to 200 members there. And our veterans have come from, traditional hiring practices through our Career Accelerator program. And I think that, like I said, is expanding. I know Workday has a key focus right now on providing opportunity and looking at diverse pools of talent within the workforce. And, you know, I look at our veterans within our community, and we have individual contributors, we have managers, we have directors, we even have VPs. I know we had Matt Brandt that was going to be part of this panel, and unfortunately, due to a family issue, wasn't able to join. Yeah, he's a West Point grad. We also have an individual that just joined our organization as the VP of our security products. You know, is a veteran. A great addition to not only our veteran community but Workday as a whole. You know, and I look across our veteran pool, and we have everything from active duty, guard reserve. We have current serving guard and reservists. We had our first member join our EBC that she served in the Canadian military. We've got a couple in Ireland so we're broadening, you know, even outside of our US service members, which is awesome to see. And, you know, and then there's a few individuals like myself, seasoned, I like to call myself, that went all the way to retirement before joining. So again, it doesn't seem like that traditional transition from military service to a tech company, but as I look across our community, we have veterans that are in those very technical careers, but we also have many across many other applications that are great fits. You know, for myself, I'm a business analyst, but I also run a lot of projects and manage a lot of projects, and we have a lot of program managers and you know, all levels of positions. So.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Wayne. Brilliant to hear about the foreign service members and getting tapped in with them. You just gave me like 100 ideas, so thanks. Yeah. Vince, we'll switch over to you and to Deloitte. So consulting is often seen as a sort of high op tempo, high stress career path. Veterans frequently seen as pretty atypical hires from a normal sort of technology consulting candidate pool. Can you tell us some of the traits that your veteran hires have had that have made them transition well into that consulting lifestyle?
Yeah, cool. You know what, before I kind of dig too much into that, you know, the one thing I want to talk about here is, you know, we have a vendor in Workday. We've got a client that employs Workday, and we've got a service provider in Deloitte who has one of its many focuses on Workday. And I think this is a really unique opportunity. I mean, unique engagement where we can really come together. We, you know, we use the phrase ecosystem and how we all work together. And you know, in like there's no client that I'll go deliver at that Workday isn't involved. You know, Workday looks to have us brought in, and I think what really to me is cool about this specific call and this ecosystem is I mean, I think we really do, we show up for each other, just like I think the vets have shown up for us. And I think that's a really cool thing. And when you talk about, you know, the consulting, you know, there are, you know, there are different behaviors in all three types of our companies. You know, Workday is going to want to further and better the product as much and as fast as possible. J&J is going to want to leverage that product to be able to, you know, better, you know, give a better experience to their employees. And as an implementer, I want to make sure that I'm having Workday show up as best as possible to exceed the expectations of our clients. And I think that's, you know, when you look at all three of us and what you may or may not want to do, I think, you know, understanding kind of the differences in what we do and how we do it, it might help. From a consulting perspective, you know, the funny thing is you might not think the skills are translatable, but consulting skills are really teachable. Like, we get new grads out of school who have no clue what they're doing all the time, and they find paths. You know, one of my favorite partners, you know, you start out at the ground level as an analyst and you go all the way up to partner. One of my favorite partners started as an analyst within Deloitte, and so, you know, I mean, and he's a perfect example that consulting skills are teachable. You just have to bring the desire and your background. And I think your background, it was already kind of discussed, you know, it's, you have a lot of similarities, I think, from my perspective, and what you can bring to the table, that absolute focus, that commitment to delivery, you know, and without trying to pander to the crowd, you know, trying to be the best that you can be. Oh my God, I think that sounds so horrible what I just said, but I think that really matters. And I think that's one of the reasons why not only the program has been successful within Deloitte, but why Deloitte has been successful within this ecosystem.
Thanks, Vince. Building on that a little bit, between core, Deloitte core, advanced degree veteran forum, hiring our heroes, a few other sort of federal and Deloitte based programs. Deloitte veterans have sort of built a reputation for mentoring, developing their own people. Can you talk a little bit about how generations of veterans have evolved at Deloitte?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's funny. I love ESPN, listening to Chris Berman talk about nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills, right? I mean, that's a metaphor that when you need to get something done, you know, the Buffalo Bills, whether you hate them or not, that's how they showed up. And to me, that's how our vets show up, right? So, like, one of my favorite stories involves the two people on this call from Deloitte that, you know, when they first started out, they gather and you go through a Workday certification process. And in that very first class, you know, no one knew how to act, no one knew what to say, no one knew what the heck, you know, even Workday was. Some of them didn't know what Workday was, but they were ready to go, and they all got on this Skype chat. And when a question would come that a vet would have, you know, you'd see all the other vets just typing madly about trying to help them what the answer is. And the rest of the class kind of caught on to it when somebody would say something funny, and all of a sudden half the class just starts bursting out laughing. But that's the point, right? I mean, in the very first class, without us directing or showing or doing anything, they show up for each other. And you know, everyone in our cohort, that the veteran cohort, picks everyone else up. And what I think is just as great, it keeps them honest. If somebody goes sideways, they're going to have a conversation amongst their own on how they need to fix that. And, you know, no vet skates by, but there's so much support. And I think for me, you rattle off a whole bunch of these programs. I've gotten involved in a bunch of these programs because the vets, you know, continue to further their agenda, and they aren't shy about it. And that's one of the things that I really love. I think that vets really show up for each other. And I think that's the reason why they're so incredibly successful within our program.
Outstanding. Thanks so much, Vince. All right, so guys, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. Before I turn the floor over for our SAC participants and any questions that they may have, my last question is for all of you. And if you were going to provide just one piece of advice to a veteran who is applying to your organization, what would that piece of advice be? John, I'll start off with you.
Can build relationships and network, right? That at the end of the day is tremendously important, not just to finding the right role and being informed as to what even that right role is for you, but it's tremendously important to the future of your success once you're within the organization. You know, I think for all three of our organizations, we're very large. J&J, you know, it's the world's largest, most broadly based healthcare company, over 130,000 employees around the world, over 130-year legacy, highly decentralized, highly matrixed. How are you successful in that organization? It's being able to influence, and the heart of that is relationships. So it's important to network and build those relationships up front as you're going, and that'll help you be successful in being a better candidate and more likely to earn a role, but it's also going to set you up for subsequent success.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, John. Wayne?
Yeah, for me, I think it's been interesting as I've worked with veterans and tried to help individuals both looking to apply to Workday and in other positions. One of the things that I find that we forget to do is our homework. I'm surprised at how many people don't research the job they're applying for. They don't research the company that they're applying to. They take a general resume that maybe they even had a company help them put together, and they use that same resume for every position that they apply to. They don't actually look at the requirements of that position and try to tailor a resume directly to the specific requirements for that job to sell themselves as an individual, that it's almost sometimes a feeling of, well, I'm a veteran. This company says they're veteran, they're veteran advocates, so I'm a shoe-in, right? It's just going to happen. They don't do their own work, and I think that's one thing that I learned throughout my career is as many good intentions as there are with your own leadership or with a company that wants to hire you, if you don't take your own career in your own hands, it's not going to go where you want it to go. So do your research. Like John said, reach out and network. I'm impressed every day with individuals that reach out to me that I've never met from Workday, but they'll say, hey, I've got this buddy of mine. He's a veteran. I hear you're in the EBC here for veterans. Would you mind talking with him? And every time I'm like, I would love to. Before the COVID pandemic, it was, hey, let's set up a lunch. If they're here local, let's get together lunch and let's go talk. Now it's, hey, send them a Zoom link, and I'm more than happy to jump on and chat with them. I think sometimes we don't do that. We're just expecting opportunity to drop in our lap instead of going out and really doing the research, networking, and then putting forth our best effort to help that hiring manager be able to translate our experience, our training, and any education we have directly to the position that we're applying for. So that'd be my advice.
Thanks so much, Wayne. Yeah, as Vince says, no vet skates by, right? A lot of resources available, but homework required. Thank you. Vince?
Yeah, so I think your first and foremost difficult task will be to stop calling me sir.
Someday,
Right,
Vince.
Nicole?
It's been half a decade, but maybe I'll get there.
No, I know it sounds funny, but within my practice at Deloitte, look, we are in a hierarchy. I'm in this with you, and I'm no important than you. We're in it together. We just have different responsibilities. But I think the biggest thing that you can do is like I've been saying, I think you got to trust your background, trust your experience, and there's no doubt directly applicable to the future you want to make within this ecosystem.
Thanks so much, Vince. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Dave, do we want to turn it over to the SAC participants for any Q&A?
Okay, we'll go ahead. And I see one question I came in here that was directed to Wayne. That in the Air Force, we have some access to IT training. Are there fundamental capabilities we should learn to prepare for a tech career? I think you all talked about a little bit about this, but I think there's a trepidation amongst many vets, and you've touched on it, of trying to enter into the tech industry, whatever we call the tech industry, is when we don't have that IT background that maybe some of the PDs are asking for. So maybe you can talk about that a little bit, Wayne, and some of you, the other companies there.
Yeah, I'd love to. In fact, I saw that in the question and answer there. And first thing is, I don't think there's a silver bullet necessarily. It depends on the position you're applying for as to what training would be the best. But it's interesting. I get the opportunity to go talk to different military groups, current serving Guard and reservists especially. And one thing I tell them is, man, there's so many opportunities for learning within the military. Take advantage of every single one. Don't let an opportunity slip by to learn something new. And if you're out of the service, I think that still applies, obviously, right? That take an opportunity whenever it arises to learn something new. But I've been impressed with every branch of service and how many opportunities there are to learn things within the scope of your career, but also outside of the scope. And so you just got to rely on what you've got. If you've got opportunity to learn more, do it. Because again, I don't think there's that one silver bullet that's going to get you across the line, but the more you have, the better opportunity is going to be there for you.
If I could just build off of that, right? It's so specific to the role on, hey, should I get technical certification, XYZ? Well, it depends on the role. And I think for Johnson & Johnson, we have kind of everything that you could potentially want to go do. So it's hard to answer that. But I think a general way to note is, professional development and growth never ends, no matter what stage you're at in your professional career. And if you're a transitioning service member, there's so many resources that you can leverage to go and upskill that are essentially free to you other than your time, right? Whether it's like leveraging Onward to Opportunity through Institute for Veterans and Military Families and going and pursuing your PMP, or a supply chain certification, right? So that's sort of my overarching thought, is that this professional development never ends. And then I'll give one other thought on this, and I often give it, again, it's mostly to transitioning service members, but it could be to the veteran population more broadly. And it's, don't forget, besides certification pursuit or credentialing pursuit, don't forget about professional organizations. So just like in the military, we might be part of, I was a signal officer, so great. I was, part of the, the Signal Officer Regimental Association, and you can get Signal Magazine and things like that, right? And there's some good professional development things that can come of that. But in the civilian world, and whatever functional area you go in, there's going to be great professional organizations. So if you're somebody who's focused on supply chain roles and you want to go be a plant director, or you want to be a director of planning, great, go become a member of the Association for Supply Chain Management. Maybe you pursue credentials from there, maybe you don't. Hey, you pride yourself on your project management experience. Well, great. In the civilian world, we really care a lot about the Project Management Institute. Go leverage some of the things that are there. Go get involved in a local chapter. So I would say, again, professional development never ends. Think of it more broadly than the certification or the credential, which might be important, but think of it of, hey, there's great organizations that I can go and be part of that are either wildly low cost or no cost. That could be beneficial to you.
And John, I couldn't agree more. There are some technical components, or XSLT, XML. There's some fundamental technologies. One of the cool things about Workday is it's not customizable, it's configurable. So, to John's point, it's really it's more of a functional learning, a domain, a business behavior that I think you can really exploit, that you don't have to. I mean, it's not like you're working at NASA. You're not building the next space, the space shuttle. You are implementing business functions, and I think, like I said, it's not incredible depth within the technology itself. It's the overall business implementation. That's more where I put my focus.
Okay, I think we got time for about one more question here, and I see it on here, and it applies to all three companies here, and it said about international positions. It was basically said, can you go from a cap to an international opportunity? And basically, Johnson & Johnson and Deloitte, maybe talk real quick about your international opportunities.
You want to go first, Sean?
Go ahead, Vince.
All right, I'll take it. We're in a few countries. I mean, we got 225,000 people in, what was it, like 230 countries. It's there's need out there, and Workday's definitely started within human capital within the U.S. and then has really grown financials. But what the opportunities are outside in Europe, in EMEA, and in Asia Pac it's unbelievable, the opportunities that we're having. And we have, I think, there are now more employees within the Workday universe in Deloitte outside of the U.S. than there are inside of the U.S. So, the opportunities are there. We are excited to try to evolve and grow our footprints in other geographic markets. And in fact, one of our big things in the U.S. is trying to help enable our what we call member firms, our countries in our other countries practices, because we know that we're going to only continue to grow the U.S. as they grow. So we have so many, not only in a specific client opportunity, and Nicole can speak to how much she was traveling on one of our projects before she took another role. It was just incredible how much opportunity you have within projects, but outside of that, in between our member firms, there is an incredible amount of opportunity for us to support, grow, participate, even secondments, transfers. The sky's the limit for your opportunities abroad.
John.
Yeah, so really practical answers. I think it's less likely to be directly hired to go into a role that is outside of where you already have work authorization, right? Keep in mind how tremendously expensive it is for an organization to sponsor and move someone internationally. So as a general comment, you really want to hire folks where they have work authorization. To Vince's point, are there great opportunities then to have that international experience as you progress in your career, in particular if you're a high performer, especially if you're a high performing individual? Yes, and J&J is no different from other large companies, tens of thousands. Again, the world's largest and most broadly based healthcare company. So we have tens of thousands of roles around the world. So there are those opportunities. I'd also answer this question slightly different, which is don't forget that you may have a locally based role that is globally focused. So, a couple roles ago for me, I was based in New Jersey. I was working at one of the company headquarters based here, but had a team that was all over both the United States, Europe, and Asia. So I was the only of the 40 folks or so, let's say roughly on my team, that was based in New Jersey. The rest of my team was either in other places within the United States, in Europe, or Asia. So I wouldn't forget about that. It all depends what you're looking to get certainly out of that international experience. Is it very sort of personal? And hey, I want to be able to live there and be immersed in the culture. But you can certainly have roles that can be heavily travel and globally focused because of the broader team. And that can also be a great enriching professional opportunity.
And Wayne, specifically from the CAP position right into an international position, or is that, give us a little bit of information there?
Well, and I would say very much like John, the opportunities are endless within your career at Workday. I want to say we have 28 overseas offices, and as far as CAP goes, right now all of our positions are based in the U.S. But then after that, if you transition to a full-time position, the opportunities are endless. And again, to his point, like for me specifically, all the projects that I manage right now are all overseas. And so I'm working with, our teams in Ireland, but then also with the in-country teams all over both EMEA and APAC. And then, with our partner companies that we're working with on these different projects overseas. So there's plenty of opportunity, for a full scope, full spectrum opportunity within Workday, both here in the US, but globally within your career. Just again, depends on the positions you're in, the type of work you're doing, and those opportunities within that spectrum across the globe. But yes, definitely there's plenty of those opportunities.
Okay, well, our allotted time is about up. I'd like to go ahead and thank Nicole for monitoring the panel. I'd like to shout out to Kevin Werderty, who basically threw out this opportunity to us, Sarah, about 2 months ago. He said, hey, how about us getting together with Johnson & Johnson and Workday and putting on a webinar that would identify ways for our alumni to basically enter into what is known as the tech world, or the more area that the military really traditionally isn't in at this point. But I think this has been very, very wonderful in giving some information out there. And I do want to thank the panel for that. I want the candidates to be sure and check in with the three companies on Friday and talk to the recruiters there about the myriad opportunities that are available at each of these outstanding companies. And at this point, I'd like to say thank you very much to the panel and thank you to the candidates. Take care.